Focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show.
Well, happy Monday there, folks. Brian Nichols here on The Brian Nichols Show, and thank you for joining us on, of course, another fun-filled episode. I am, as always, your humble host, and guess what? Today we're going to talk about a good guy stopping a bad guy with a gun. How about that? Not just a good guy with a gun stopping a bad guy with a gun. But before we get there, I want to go ahead and give a shout out to today's sponsor. And today, yes, it is the one, the only Expat Money Show. Head over to briannicholsshow.com/expat. And you can go ahead and subscribe to this amazing podcast hosted by the one and only Mikkel Thorpe that will help you protect the money that you worked so hard to earn from those ambulance-chasing lawyers, nefarious creditors, and greedy, unjust governments. Our good buddy Mikkel Thorpe is also going to say, hey, I help people just like you invest internationally, secure second passports and residencies, eliminate your tax bill, and take advantage of offshore structures so you can travel the world freely and never have to worry about money again. Never have to worry about money again. Doesn't that sound nice, folks? Well, if this all sounds exciting, head to briannicholsshow.com/expat, where, yes, you can find the amazing Expat Money Show, but also you can sign up for the amazing Expat Money Summit taking place November 7th through November 11th, 5 days, 30 expert speakers. You ready for this? The one and only Congressman Ron Paul will be one of those speakers. So make sure you head to briannicholsshow.com/expat and get your free, yes, I said free tickets to the Expat Money Summit. One more time, briannicholsshow.com/expat. All right, folks. So we're going to talk about it. A good guy with a gun took on a bad guy with a gun. And guess what? The good guy with a gun took him out and saved a lot of lives in the meantime. Also joining us today, talking about Young Americans for Liberty's Revolution 2022, Brandon Williamson. Welcome to the program.
Appreciate you having me on, man.
Absolutely. Looking forward to today's conversation because, yeah, the myth from the left, you ever see those stories about a good guy with a gun stopping a bad guy with a gun? I don't see it. Here we go. Got a perfect example. This just took place here over the weekend over in Indiana. Now, I'm not saying this jubilant at all because, unfortunately, it did lead with the loss of life. I think it was 3 innocent bystanders shot by a lone gunman in a mall. I think it was in Greenwood, Indiana. And the shooter is also now one of the confirmed dead because he was shot down by a 22-year-old who was concealed carry in the mall, a hero. And yeah, it's an amazing story. But before we get there, Brandon, I'm putting the cart before the horse. Do us a favor, introduce yourself to the Brian Nichols Show audience. And what's your role over at Young Americans for Liberty?
So my name is Brandon Williamson. I'm an infantry veteran, and over at Yale, what I do is I run our social media. So I'm the director of social media. Basically, I make memes and like other graphics and videos all throughout the day, and stuff like that. I do a lot of things for, like, I've written a number of times for us on various issues, Second Amendment and veterans related. And I also do, like, with Revolution 2022 coming up down in Orlando, me and one of the other guys, we've been putting together, some graphics for that. We've been putting together some playlists for, the music, the ambiance, the walk-ons for the speakers. Kind of like my main focus is social media, but whenever there's something that needs to be done, I hop in and do it because someone's got to do it.
Somebody's got to do it. I think that's the role of any small business. And yeah, I'd count Young Americans for Liberty as a, quote, small business, because at the end of the day, we're in the Liberty movement. We have a very strong, passionate base. But when you look at the microcosm that is the American political world, we are a speck really in the movement when you compare it to all the other forces that are out there and behind them, the just oceans of cash that support these other organizations, right? So we have an uphill battle, and with that, it's kind of all hands on deck, right? Like everybody, you're the sales guy, you're the marketing guy, you're the HR guy, you're doing all sorts of different roles. But at the end of the day, I also find it makes me a more well-rounded person. If I'm, in my sales role, I do a lot of my marketing, a lot of my, outreach and stuff on my own. I do a lot of my cold calling. I know a lot of sales guys, they don't even do their own cold calling, which blows me away. I'm sitting here, I'll do like 50 to 75 dials because I'm like, hey, I want to find good qualified leads myself. And you know what? I think I'm getting better leads than some of those other sales guys out there who don't do that. So I think doing the extra things makes you an all-around, well-rounded person. I don't know how we got off on this tangent. Let's go back to Young Americans for Liberty Revolution 2022. You guys got some amazing speakers. I teased one of the speakers from the Expat Money Summit, Ron Paul. I think I saw he's going to be headliner there as well, and also some familiar faces and voices. I say voices because a lot of podcasters, yours truly included, will be there as well. Talk to us. Who else can folks expect you to see over at Rev 2022?
Oh man, so we got a list. So I can't actually remember them all off the top of my head. Like last year when I was doing the music for the walk-ons today, there are way more names than I remember from last year. Like, it was so long. Like I'm putting all the music together. I'm like, man, there's a lot of people here. I don't remember this many, but we got like Rand Paul. He's going to be there virtually. You know, he's going to tune in over Zoom, I assume. I don't know. He's going to be doing a big old speech there. We got Dave Smith is coming. We've got Kennedy. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Like there is a lot of people. Man, there was someone else I was really excited about. Let me pull up
I think I'm one step ahead of you. I'm pulling up right now the Young Americans for Liberty Twitter. Here, 1 second.
Oh, we're gonna have Brandon Herrera there, so the AK guy. So everyone loves him, right?
Here we go. Full speaker drop. This is for our YouTube,
yes.
by the way.
There we go. That is the answer. That thing is so convenient.
Ron Paul, Tulsi Gabbard, Rand Paul, Kennedy, Glenn Jacobs, Dave Smith, Spike Cohen, Larry Reed, Corey DeAngelis, Brad Palumbo, Hannah Cox, Lauren Daugherty, Zuby, Brandon Herrera, Justin Amash. That's just the top block for our audio listener playing along at home. And then a slew of other names that a lot of folks we recognize, like our good buddies Clint Russell, Mark Claire, Reed Coverdale. I see a lot of other folks on there that I'm like, oh yeah, Dan Taylor, Jack Hunter, and also some of those names in the top there. We had let's see, we've had Justin Amash in the program, Hannah and Brad many a time, Corey many a time, Spike many a time, Glenn Jacobs. I mean, yeah, this is a very familiar list here for the audience. So folks, this is what you get over at Young Americans for Liberty Revolution 2022. You get basically, it's the best of the Brian Nichols Show, if I'm going to be honest.
That was pretty great. And I got to say, like, I'm super excited for Brandon Herrera. He's how I got into the Liberty movement. You know, like I'd read books and all that type of stuff, but after I got out of the Army, you know, I was sitting around working a factory job, didn't really have anything that I was doing. And I watched one of his gun meme reviews and saw the ad for Operation Win at the door. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna put in an application. They're going to want someone with experience and, you know, things relevant to politics. And ended up got a call from the dude that was running the grassroots department. He was like, hey man, you're what we're looking for. Veterans tend to do really good. So we're going to bring you on. And I've been here ever since, you know, different roles, but been working for Liberty ever since then. And it was a phenomenal experience. So, I mean, you know, if you can't make it to Rev 22, try out OWD. You'll love it.
Oh, and let's transition, because that actually kind of worked out well for a transition into the 2A debate conversation. I don't even know if it's a debate at this point in time. It shouldn't be a debate. Our rights are not debatable, but this has become a conversation yet again. It really started back, I think, is it a month ago, 2 months ago now, the Uvalde shooting. Absolute tragedy took place down in Texas, 23, I think it was. Innocent lives taken from just an absolutely insane person with a gun in a school, and 400 armed law enforcement officers standing by and doing nothing, holding actual parents back from going in and trying to save their children, versus what just happened here over this past weekend as we're recording on July 18th. And that was in the mall in Indiana, where I had a 22-year-old with a gun, a concealed carry, stop another madman trying to shoot up and cause mass mayhem in a public space. Now, while the gentleman that, I say gentleman, there's nothing gentle or manly about this guy, the coward that unleashed hell at this mall, he was one of the people that were taken out here, but so were 3 innocent bystanders before he was taken down by our hero here. So let's talk about this. You obviously have a different perspective because you've served in the armed forces. There we go. Saying armed services and armed forces at the same time, and you get forces and versuses, and it just doesn't work out. But no, you've had experience being someone who has, in some folks' eyes, the reason to carry a gun, versus now you live the life of civilian, someone who you have the right to carry a gun. So what do you see when you're looking at this conversation taking place across the country? I mean, I've had my opinions. The audience has heard it many a time, but I would love to hear your perspective, being someone who had a foot in both camps.
So when I was I was an infantryman and I was a 240 gunner. So I carried the 7.62, the big machine gun, not the 50 cal, the one right under it. And somehow I went from being trusted 1 week to carry that to the next week I was out of the Army and I'm no longer trusted to own that. Like, I don't see how that works. Like, yeah, sure, it was locked up in an arms room, but I have a gun safe. I keep my guns in when I'm not shooting them or if I'm not carrying them. Like, to me, it just doesn't make sense that you can say that one day because the government has sprinkled magic fairy dust on this guy and he gets a paycheck from them, he is good to go and can carry that gun. But a week later, when he's no longer getting that check, he's suddenly less responsible. It doesn't make sense to me. And like, when I look at the Uvalde thing, right? You know, it was 400 cops, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and they stood around for, I think it was around 90 minutes, about an hour and a half, doing nothing. Like, if you're in that job, if you're carrying a gun professionally, you are buying that risk. There is a definite chance that you will die in the line of duty. Like, it sucks. If you can't accept that risk, you need a new job, straight up. So there's no reason for you to stand around. Like, they've said all sorts of stuff. They've tried to say that they had comms issue. I don't need comms with anyone else in that situation. All I need is that 4-man fire team around me to say, okay, yeah, we're going to go, doorway right, stack on me, and make entry, battle drill 6 into the room. It's not hard. It's to me, when I look at this, and I've talked to my uncle and some cousins who are cops, to get their opinion on it. And even they said the same thing, that it was simply cowardice. There was just a lack of willingness to go into harm's way to save kids. And to me, if you can't do that, if you're not willing to put your life on the line, especially for kids, like, what are you doing? You're in the wrong profession, dude. And, I think it goes to show, like, the Supreme Court has said more than once that the police don't have a duty to protect you. Their only job is to arrest criminals and prosecute. That's it. Like, outside of that, and outside of enforcing the law, no duty to protect you. So this whole thing about, like, with the shooter in the mall, the left is upset because he disobeyed policy, the mall's policy, and carried a gun. Like, how does that make sense? Like, the cops aren't legally required to protect me, but somehow me ignoring a frankly stupid policy that I'm not allowed to protect myself, like, how does that make sense? If the cops aren't required to protect me, why should I not be allowed to protect myself? Criminals go after places that are soft targets. You never say a mass shooting in a gun show or in a gun store or, at a shooting range, because there's guns everywhere. People are armed. They are ready for things to happen. They're probably not expecting it in that situation, but they have the means to react. Every mass shooting you see, it happens in a school, a movie theater, a mall, places that, either federally or by state law prohibit the carrying of firearms. I think that if you keep seeing the same thing in the same places, maybe it's not the item being used that's the issue. It's the laws keeping you from protecting yourself.
Yeah. And who is it? It's Chicago's Lori Lightfoot, who always makes the argument, well, it's the guns coming in from states like Indiana to Illinois. And that's where all the problems are coming from. And you can say, well, you don't see all these mass shootings taking place in Indiana like you are in literally not just the state of Illinois, but let's just look at Chicago specifically. Now, let's take even the example of this past weekend when it is a shooting. It gets resolved by someone with a gun who's a good guy with a gun. In this case, someone who broke, to your point, a silly rule from the mall. Thank God he broke the silly rule from the mall, because if he hadn't, 10, 15, 20 more warm bodies on the ground mowed down by this madman were it not for this 22-year-old. I think I've seen him called a good Samaritan. I'm just going to call him a hero, call him what he is. Yeah. I think not only do we need more folks like this 22-year-old hero, but we need to get more folks in a position to be like this 22-year-old hero, to not have silly restrictions in the way that are keeping them not safe. And in many cases, actually putting them into danger. I just moved from Philadelphia, PA. I see the videos come in on the constant of the madness that happens there, whether it's the mass shooting that happened at a block party literally a week after I was down there in the exact same area. I was visiting some family for a wedding, and you hear that take place where 12 people were shot and killed. You look at, there's a guy getting shot and killed, and then his car taken at a gas station when he was just pumping gas on his way to work. You see people out walking their dogs getting shot just to take their cell phones and their wallet. I mean, this is not uncommon in cities like Philadelphia, but Philadelphia basically has one big gun-free zone sticker on it. And guess what? The criminals, they're not listening. I remember fondly sitting in bed at night for 7+ years when I lived in Philadelphia playing, is it fireworks or is it gunshots? And I didn't like playing that game. That game sucked because if it was fireworks, that's great. But I knew it wasn't, because it was going to be like, October 3rd. So with that being said, hey, maybe we should re-examine our gun laws. Maybe we should have a different conversation, but not from the adding restrictions. If anything, it's the added restrictions that have categorically led to more problems across the board.
Yep, 100%. Like, if you look at it, name a state with a loose gun laws that has mass shootings regularly. Like, and I'm not talking like the sensationalized ones on the media alone. I'm talking like actual FBI statistics. Any shooting that claims, I think it's 3 or more lives in one incident. Like, every single one of those places that has them routinely is a Democrat-controlled city, to be quite frank. It's like Chicago, to where it's, if 4 people get shot, it's just another Tuesday there. Like, nobody even notices because it's so common. Like, I'm from Alabama. We don't have stuff like that happen. Like, if there is a single shooting in the town, it's a big story. Like, everyone takes notice of it. I think that really the answer is, and I think people need to be carrying more guns. I think if you arm yourself and you protect yourself, like, put yourself in the shoes of the criminal. Are you going to go after the dude that's walking down the street, obviously isn't carrying a gun, but dressed nice, looks like a good target? Or are you going to go after the guy that looks like he can take care of himself? Maybe you see a bulge under his shirt or something like that. Who are you going to pick? I'm not going after the porcupine. If I'm a wolf, I'm staying away from the thing that can hurt me personally. But
Yep. Yeah. Well, and let's talk about where we're heading from this, right? The left seems to be very, very motivated about their having the moral superiority in this conversation. It's frankly exhausting and nauseatingly gross to go on social media and see this conversation just become a left-wing jumping off point every single time something happens. But at the same point in time, I also see that there is a strong pushback for the first time in, I think, liberty politics, maybe not liberty politics, because we've been doing a pretty good job in fighting back, but maybe in the first time in the, quote, silent majority, actually standing up and becoming a vocal majority and saying, no, listen, we're not taking these moments of mass hysteria and turning them into opportunities to strip us of our rights. And we've seen more states like Texas stand up, for example, and not only say, hey, listen, we're not listening to this federal conversation, but states like Texas are ready to secede. They're ready, they're on the ballot right now for coming up this next election cycle to actually have a vote to secede from the union. That's a big deal. And states like Texas, I would say there are a lot of other states right behind them, are more than happy to say, all right, bye-bye. We're going to do Brexit, Texit, Flexit. You name the state. It's going to get weird when it's all the states that start with vowels, though. That would be really good.
I live up in Wyoming right now, and every time I talk to someone...
Wexit? Wexit. Yeah, we'll try that.
Wexit. I like that one. But every time I talk to someone up here and that conversation gets brought up, everybody is on board with it. Like, we've seen the stuff that the federal government's doing. They're attacking your gun rights relentlessly, even after like the recent Bruin decision from the Supreme Court. Immediately, like a week and a half later, what does New York do? They introduce a law that makes 90% of New York City a gun-free zone. Like, they do not respect your rights. And then on top of that, they want to tax you and spend until we go off the fiscal cliff. Like, we've had a couple quarters now of negative growth, as if I remember correctly. So we're in a recession, and I personally think we're heading towards a depression. These leftist policies, they have destroyed our economy, they've destroyed our country, and they're trying to destroy your rights. I don't see a way for this to end well. And personally, I'm kind of getting on the mindset that maybe the best thing is to do the Declaration of Independence Part 2,
Well, be careful saying that because I'll have people thinking that you're a big radical and revolutionary. I mean, if only we were going to an event called Revolution 2022 next month.
I
Well,
wonder
I
where
don't
they
know.
could have got that idea from.
I don't know. Well, hey, for the feds watching, see you there. But no, thank you for bringing this up, Brennan, because this is a conversation we're having here, not just on the Brian Nichols Show, but across the country. And I think it's important for us to make sure we're leading not just with the emotion, but also with some common sense. Now, we do know, because we talk about sales and marketing here in the show, that emotion sells, but
Oh yeah.
emotion sells, but people also will rationalize after the fact with logic and reason. The two have to go hand in hand. And what we've seen is the left has just had this monopoly on emotion, and the right has seemingly been fixated and had this monopoly on logic and reason. What we need to do, if we're going to be effective in actually meeting people where they're at on the issues they care about, is to bridge the world of emotion, logic, and reason, lead with the emotion, catch them and win them, and hold them on the logic and reason. And then I think we can actually get our ideas to stick, which I'm seeing happen here in our movement. I know you guys are seeing it over at Young Americans for Liberty. You're having success in changing the conversations, restarting, and in many cases, resetting narratives, but also you're winning elections. You're having folks actually have electoral success across the country. As we wrap up here, please, Director of Social Media, talk to us about some of those wins that you have had at Young Americans for Liberty on the state level and what we're looking forward to as we go towards the midterms in 2022.
Well, so we've done a lot to get folks elected. I can't remember the exact number, but it's in the ballpark of 250 now. We're definitely going to hit. That's been our goal for years, is 250. We're definitely going to hit it. Like, that is going to happen. So now I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to say it. If not, oh well. We're looking towards the next thing. Like, what's next? Like, we know for a fact we're going to get it. Like, we are very confident. So what do we look to after we get 250 state legislator members elected? So we're thinking about that. We've been fighting for school choice, constitutional carry, healthcare freedom, right to work legislation, all this type of stuff. We were big. We played a big role in getting it passed down in Texas, constitutional carry, that is. We've done a lot on right to work up in New Hampshire and, the Northeast states, break the union, the unions being able to use their influence for political purposes that might be contrary to their membership, and also requiring people to be in a union to work just doesn't sit right with us. You shouldn't be forced to be part of an organization to feed yourself, I don't think, personally. We're doing a lot of stuff like that. We're having some internal conversations that I know I'm definitely not allowed to talk about right now about what our next goals are be. And I'm shooting big. I think that we need to go to the moon personally. And I think it's very possible. Like, if in the next year or so you hear some huge news from Yale, don't be surprised at all. Like, we are on the right track. We are going to do amazing things, and we're going to do everything we can to make millions more people free in this country.
You're going to do amazing things. You're going to do amazinger things, amazingest things. It's going to be great. And I'm along for the ride with you guys. I'm so excited to see not just the success of what you've already accomplished as it really starts to grow. I mean, we planted the seeds back when Young Americans for Liberty was really starting to get the word out there. Now it turned into actually getting people into office. Now those folks are getting policy into office. And to your point, as we start to grow, when we reach more people looking at what Young Americans for Liberty is doing, man, the sky is the limit. And with that being said, yeah, folks, please make sure, if you have not had the chance yet, I know the spots are limited. Like, and by limited, I mean like barely any left. Head over to Young Americans for Liberty, yaliberty.com, and make sure you grab, if there are tickets, I don't even know, there might not be tickets left, but make sure you head over there ASAP to try and secure your tickets. When's the Young Americans for Liberty Revolution 2022 taking place, Brandon?
So a quick correction for you. It's yaliberty.org.
.org. I tried. I'm sorry.
Sign up. Oh, it's all good, man. And the sign up link for Revolution 2022, which is going to be August 4th to 6th, is yaliberty.org/revolution. And like you said, yeah, spots are limited. Like, if you don't get in now, like, I can't guarantee there's going to be any left. So as soon as you see this, hop on there and sign up. You don't want to miss this. This is going to be wild.
I am excited to be there. I'm excited to be hanging out with folks this year, because last year, right, the joy that is flying from Philadelphia, because I was in Philadelphia at the time. This was when Spirit Airlines was going through their big debacle there, and I was one of the folks caught up in it. And I have, unfortunately, I think the closest flight I could have gotten would have had me there on the Sunday you guys wrapped up, because it was going to be like 3 connecting flights to Chicago.
Oh, I actually remember that story. I remember getting told about that during the event.
Yeah, well, then I was the guy going around because I had my buddy Chris down there with the laptop, and he was the one walking around as I was interviewing people via Philadelphia, but he wasn't actually there in my behalf. So, yeah, I was the weird guy. But now I'm actually going to be there in person this year. Excited for that. And I'm excited to actually see a lot of you folks, because believe it or not, I've only been to a few actual like big Liberty conventions. I was out in Philadelphia for a long time, went to YALCon back in 2018. That was a lot of fun. And I was supposed to go see you guys last year. Unfortunately, got a little screwed there. And then other than that, I've spoken at a few different conventions, different events across the United States, but nothing really too big and wild. So this is going to be a big event. I'm excited to see everyone. And of course, Brandon, I'm excited to see you guys and the amazing team over at Young Americans for Liberty. Do us a favor, give us a shout in terms of where folks can go ahead, follow you on social media. They want to continue the conversation. And of course, final thoughts for the audience today.
So it's basically why Liberty for everything. Like if you Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, it's all going to be the same. Like on Facebook, you might actually, if you're searching it in the search bar, it's going to be Young Americans for Liberty. But if you just type it in the URL bar, that's why Liberty. That's make it nice and simple for you guys. So, yeah.
Perfect. All right. And any final thoughts for the audience today?
Guys, just keep on doing whatever you can to make us more free in this country. Like freedom's important. We don't want to lose it.
Ain't that the truth? I have some family and friends who have either married into families outside the United States who are coming from some very not free areas. But to be able to hear what the experience was like for them in those areas versus the importance of maintaining our sense of freedom and liberty here in the United States. I know for them, it is paramount. It's also why the left is losing the conversation with our friends in the Hispanic camp, Latinx, whatever the hell they try to say. Guess what? That doesn't really jibe too well with your average Hispanic individual. I say that because I have family who are married into Hispanic families. So yeah, I've heard that firsthand. They are not a fan of that. And by the way, they're also not a fan of socialism. Why? Because they probably came from a country where socialism was prevalent. But that's a conversation for a different day. Brandon Williamson, thank you for joining us on today's episode of The Brian Nichols Show. And folks, if you enjoy the episode, well, please do us a solid. Go ahead and give it a share. When you do, please go ahead and tag Young Americans for Liberty. And I'll make sure I include all their links, by the way, in the show notes. And also please tag yours truly at B Nichols Liberty. And by the way, folks, did you hear? I talked about it last week. I unfortunately had to break down why libertarians don't win. And hey, if you did not catch that episode from Friday, no worries. I'll include that for you right here below. I'll see you over there. And otherwise, for our audio listener, well, hey, click the podcast catcher artwork. It'll bring you right to briannicholsshow.com, where you can find today's episode, the entire transcript of the episode, all the links. And by the way, you can find the video version of the program. When you're over on the YouTube, hit the subscribe button. And also do us a favor and hit that little notification bell so you don't miss a single time we drop an episode live here 5 days a week. All right, folks, that's all I have for you. Thank you for joining us on today's Monday episode. With that being said, it's Brian Nichols signing off here for Brandon Williamson. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to The Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.